Welcome back to the Vanessa G Fitcast. I'm Vanessa Pozos, and here with me is my co-host and husband, Omar Pozos. How are you doing, Omar?
I'm doing good.
A little frustrated with the dogs.
Yeah. So just for context, this is our third time that we're trying to record this. We're dog sitting for my brother-in-law and sister-in-law. And so the dogs are a little crazy. Things are a little chaotic. But you know what? I'm excited because this is a little bit different of an episode that we typically do. And so I'm excited. If you guys are newer or have been listening to the podcast for a little while, Vanessa's going to get to share some of her deepest, darkest secrets. So hang in there. I'm excited for this.
Yeah, we'll see how deep and dark we get. For those who don't know, so if you follow me on Instagram, you might have saw the other day I posted on my story that, 233 episodes into the podcast we are, 4.5 years of consistent podcasting. And I've never done a just like open, ask me anything Q&A type of episode. And I was thinking about it. And, truthfully, the reason why is because I always kind of had this feeling of like, oh, but if I like throw out the whole like ask me anything question box, I'm like, people don't care. They're not going to ask me anything. And I was like, then I'm just going to feel stupid when I go and I only have like 2 questions and then that's the whole episode.
Like,
so I just like always held back. And I finally was like, I think this would be really fun if I did it. And I've had people like ask me different questions that I've, been like, oh, this would be a good episode for the podcast. So I was like, you know what? Let's see what happens if I throw it out there. And I think we got like 40 something questions of really good stuff here. So we're going to just see how many we can get through today.
Yeah. All right. You want to dive in?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Question number 1. Why is your husband so sexy and how are you lucky enough to be able to marry? I'm kidding. All right. So here we go. Seriously. So number 1, what is the one thing that you see as a commonality amongst your clients in Vital Spark?
One thing. So there's so many things I feel like I could say, but I'm just going to answer like really the first thing that comes to mind for me on this question. I would say everybody's bodies are more stressed than they think they are. And I mean, I feel like we talk about stress every single episode, but it's the reality of things. Example. So one of our clients, she had posted on her story the other day comparing her Aura Ring metrics now, where if anybody has an Aura Ring, it'll actually show you the amount of time in the day that it's registering that your body is stressed. And she posted a comparison of what her Aura Ring is like now after, I think, like 5 months that she's been working with us compared to prior to working with us. And she was like, I never would have described myself as being someone who was stressed.
Yeah.
And I was always so confused. I thought maybe my Aura Ring was off because I would look at the stress scores and it would tell me I was stressed for 8, 9, 10 hours of the day. She was like, and if you talk to her, she's like just the most chill person. She's like, I never felt stressed. I never would have described myself as being stressed. Yet that's the thing. Stress and like perceived stress, and when we describe ourselves as being stressed in terms of the emotion, that's a little bit different from actual internal stress on the body. And I would say all of our clients, that is a commonality, that everybody comes into our program either already identifying as like, I'm stressed out, I feel stressed, or their body is showing that they are stressed through the health markers, through what we see on their labs, through their symptoms. So I would say that's the commonality, is like everybody's body is way more stressed than they think it is.
I'm going to take a different approach on this question because I want to ask it a little bit different. So I guess in addition to that, what is like one trait that you see amongst clients in Vital Spark that make them successful, or that make them or that allow them to really see changes when it comes to internal healing?
Yeah, that's a really good question.
Thanks.
I would say commonality amongst our most successful clients is that they are very growth minded. They're very much focused on the process over progress, because the reality is, and we always, work very much with people on like, hey, we're trying to do this sustainably. We're trying to heal your body. And most people come to us with some aspect of body composition goals, wanting to lose weight, wanting to see changes in their body. And we'll tell them of like, we've got to heal your body before we can really expect that of your body. Might it happen in the healing process? Yeah, of course. Like for many people it does, but for many people it doesn't either. And it's not a determinant of success or not, whether or not you lose weight as your body's healing. Weight loss comes after the healing process. And so the clients who are most successful are the ones who are not looking for the weight loss. They're not looking for the body composition change. They're trusting that that is going to come once you heal their body. They know that that will be the end result of that. And they just focus on the process. They focus on, okay, what do I need to be doing? What do I need to be working on? How can I just continue focusing on like the actual day-to-day inputs and not worrying about the outputs?
Yeah. And I see this on a lot of the consultation calls that we have, but this isn't something that just happened overnight. Like we didn't get here in 30 days. It's a compounding result of what you've been doing for the last 5 to 10 years. And so it's so hard for us to come in and undo 5-10 years worth of damage in 30 days and expect it all to happen so quickly. But anyways, all right. So number 2, what are your thoughts, Vanessa, on bioidentical progesterone for PMDD or low progesterone in general?
Oh, I love it. We're getting a good mix of questions with this.
Break down bioidentical progesterone, because I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, so bioidentical progesterone basically refers to if you're taking like a supplement or a medication that would be the same chemical structure as natural progesterone in the body. Okay. So it's not a synthetic. It's not like taking birth control where you're taking, progestin, synthetic versions of progesterone. Okay. So question, thoughts on bioidentical progesterone for
PMDD or low progesterone in general.
Got it. Okay. So for those who don't know, PMDD, that refers to, it's basically the medical term for when you are very depressive in your luteal phase of your cycle due to low progesterone. Typically, PMDD is something I dealt with there for a while. It's it's way more common than people realize, and I think a lot of people just think that they're just depressed, and it just maybe comes a little bit in cycles, and they don't realize it's actually a hormonal imbalance. So when it comes to PMDD, I'm a fan of supplementing with bioidentical progesterone. I myself have supplemented with bioidentical progesterone for a few years now. Progon B is one that we'll use often with clients. Now, when it comes to supplementing with anything, but especially with hormones, we have to make sure we're not just using it as a Band-Aid, because we have to still address why is progesterone low, right? And there could be a lot of reasons why progesterone is low. Oftentimes, it might be that your body is overstressed. Maybe you've been under eating, overtraining. Maybe you came off of birth control and you didn't support your body in being able to get that natural production of progesterone back online. It could be that there are some gut issues affecting your hormone balance. It could be, that your liver is kind of overwhelmed. It could be your liver is, sluggish. There could be so many different reasons causing it, but ultimately, if we're not addressing the actual root cause of progesterone being low, then it might not be the best solution. It's kind of like it could be helping alleviate symptoms in the meantime. And so it might be, for some cases, something to add in sooner than later. But often in many cases, it might be that, hey, let's focus on our liver. Let's focus on our gut. Let's make sure we get these things in a really great spot and see if your natural progesterone really kicks in. But if someone is, really depressive, it's definitely something we would want to consider of maybe adding in.
Yeah. I know we're big fans of analogies, but correct me if I'm wrong. The way I picture it is it's like a car that has like holes in the gas tank, right? And so you can keep adding gas, but if you're never fixing the true root cause as to why it's so low on gas, then it's never going to work, right?
Yeah. Because it'll probably help, adding it, because progesterone, we like to say progesterone's kind of like adding this like calming blanket to the body. Progesterone's a very calming hormone. If you think about like typically you're more fatigued and tired during your luteal phase, often that actually is because of a surge in progesterone to where it's almost like overly calming to where you actually end up more tired. But for those who are not producing enough progesterone, that's where typically you'll find that we tend to veer towards like depression and, mood disorder type symptoms.
That makes sense. All right. Number 3. Oh, this one's a fun one. How did you meet your husband, Vanessa?
So we met in a CrossFit gym.
We did. Yeah. Typical just CrossFit love story, I guess.
Is that a typical
you
thing?
You want to give more details, or do you want me to go into it?
Why don't you give your version of the story, and I'll fill in anything that I think is
so
maybe
we were in. Yeah, so Vanessa and I met at a CrossFit gym in Atlanta, Georgia, and we basically started going to some of the same classes. I had met her. I was like, that girl's kind of cute. And so long story short, we had a couple of friends in common because at the time the CrossFit community was very tight knit. And so we had one friend, shout out to Todd. And so he would always
We had one friend. That's the truth.
Well, we had one friend that was always trying to egg Vanessa on and I's relationship on and trying to encourage us.
He was a matchmaker.
Yeah, he was like, you need to talk to this girl. And he would tell Vanessa, like, hey, what do you think of my friend Omar? So anyways, at the time, this was when your sister was getting married, right? And so long story short, we had kind of like spoken and hung out. We had a bowling alley encounter, an event. And so afterwards, Vanessa posted something on her Instagram, and I think she did it intentionally. I think later you told me you did. But yeah, she posted something on her story about the wedding and was like, oh, I'm looking for a wedding date or something along those lines. And so I DM'd her and was like, I'm available or something like that. And so anyways, that led to one thing and another. But originally it came down to good old CrossFit.
It was a slow progression of like, I first met him that fall at the CrossFit gym, but yet we weren't in the same CrossFit classes typically. And so by the time like we had just like, here and there, like once a month at different like CrossFit events, I would see him and I was like, oh, I think that guy's kind of cute. Like, and he's like the class clown, just like always fun, always cracking jokes, all the things. And I'm like the quiet girl who, I would keep to myself, and I think I was kind of drawn to his personality. And so ultimately, like, of course, watching him lift heavy weights doesn't hurt either. After like several months, I was like, you know what, I kind of like this guy. And it was like the next CrossFit event, I tried to kind of talk to him and make my move. And yet it was a Thursday night to where work was the next day. And as soon as I'm like talking to him, he's like, I got to leave. I got to go. I'm like, I got to go work.
I had to go.
I was like, oh, I don't think this guy likes me. And so I think that's when I first was like, I need to just like, whatever, make my move, see what happens. And so I think I slid into your DMs. I like made a joke, and then we went back and forth with memes for a little while.
I forgot about that part. Yeah.
So it was like a slow burn, slow development of like seeing each other once a month and then sending memes like once a week.
Oh, that was back when memes were big. Yeah. We would send a lot of memes to one another.
And then, finally it was like that spring that, I think you finally like actually asked me out, and we went to, the rooftop of Ponce City Market in Atlanta, because we lived in Atlanta at the time, and the rest was history. Yeah, we basically moved in together like a month or two later.
Well, yeah. Well, we kind of, yes. Vanessa had her own apartment. I had my own, but unfortunately...
Emphasis on the word basically, moved in together.
But then, we would just spend so much time that unfortunately, like, her apartment never got used. So then a year later, we're like, all right, well, why don't we just move in together?
At one point, my sister came to visit, and I was like, oh, yeah, you can stay with me at my apartment. And she comes to the apartment, and she's like, looks around, she's like, you don't actually live here. I'm like, what? What are you talking about?
Your apartment looks like it's...
She's like, your refrigerator's empty. The place does not look like it's been touched. It looks like you just moved in 2 days ago, and you moved in like 7 months ago.
Number 4, Vanessa, what are your favorite inexpensive biohacks for happy hormones?
Favorite inexpensive biohacks for happy hormones. So biohacks can be a broad term. I think when people think about biohacks, they think of like fancy technologies, like the I don't know, like what's popular in Instagram these days.
Like a hyperbaric chamber.
Yeah, the PEMF mat, the cold
red light,
plunges, red light. Like people think about like these like really expensive devices. So I think when this person's asking this question, they're probably referring to like not those things that are all like $1,000, $2,000. But that being said, when it comes to biohacks and biohacking in general, really what biohacking is referring to is hacking your biology with like health and fitness type of behaviors, devices, all the different things. So it's like if you really want the most inexpensive biohacks for happy hormones, drinking more water, taking deep breaths, like these are free things that are biohacks.
Yeah.
That said, I would say like actual inexpensive things that is probably what people are asking for. Dry brushes. That's a pretty inexpensive, like you can get on Amazon a dry brush for probably like $10, $20. And that's going to be really helpful because essentially you're doing just like manual lymphatic drainage, and lymphatic drainage is important because you could be properly detoxing out excess hormones. But if it's getting kind of stuck in your lymphatic system because you have a sluggish lymphatic system, that could lead to a buildup of hormones. Some other things that are inexpensive.
Sleep, good quality sleep.
Yeah, that's, on like the free side of like truly biohacking.
Yeah. Well, I say that because I get caught up in this myself, right? Everybody's like, I need the latest Oura Ring. I need the latest Whoop. I need the latest Apple Watch. I'm like, well, sure, that's going to help. But if you're eating really crappy, if you're not sleeping well, if you're not drinking enough water, I'm like, that's the stuff that everybody needs. Because, I mean, going back to like, the 1800s, like, earlier than that, like nobody had a lot of this technology. And I think all of those things are great. And sure, we're exposed to a lot more toxins now. And I think those things can very much help. But I'm like, it still starts with the right foundation. And I think that's, it's not as sexy or as fancy where people are like, oh, I don't need that. But I'm like, well, actually you do, because other than that, like, I'm like, you can make so much more progress if you're sleeping well and drinking enough water and eating correctly, instead of you being like, well, now I need my red light mask or my, you know what I mean? And so although those things are great, I'm like, it's still not going to work if you don't have a right foundation.
Totally. Yeah, that's a great point, because it's like people are wanting to hack in terms of, let me, free, what's the word? Frog leap. I was like log free.
Leapfrog?
Leapfrog.
Is it leapfrog or frog leap? I think it's leapfrog. Okay.
Yeah. People are trying to leapfrog over the foundations and just skip over the basics.
Yeah.
Skip over drinking enough water. It's like, how much water are you drinking? Bare minimum, you need to be drinking 80 ounces if you need to be working your hormones. But realistically, you need to probably be drinking a gallon of water if you expect to have balanced hormones. Water is going to help flush everything out. Water helps with blood sugar regulation. Water helps with every cellular process. So it's like, how much water are you drinking, girlfriend? Okay, sleep. You mentioned sleep.
Yeah.
How much are you sleeping? Are you, going to bed at a normal hour, but yet you're not actually falling asleep at that time? It's like, we got to work on our sleep. So that could look like biohacking in the sense of turning technology off before bed. An inexpensive biohacking device might be some blue light blocking glasses. You can get those on Amazon for really cheap as well.
That's a good point. Or even just turning your AC down.
Yeah.
And like having it a cold room.
Cold environment, maybe turn the fan on. So there's a lot of things we could do to help support happy hormones on a very inexpensive level. You do not need to get caught up in the expensive things all over social media. I know I'm always like, oh, I'm like so close to checking out on something because like this influencer selling this thing really well. I feel like I need to try it. And then I'm like, I don't need that. It's not actually going to be.
We do have the water filter, the ozone water filter. And
Ozone.
Again, or what is it called? What is it?
Reverse osmosis.
Oh, whatever.
It's the ozone layer.
Stuff, and we do try and cold plunge and all these things. But again, it comes down to, trying to get that like 2%. But I'm like, what's really going to make the biggest difference is a solid, proper nutrition, food diversity, proper sleep, stress management, all of that stuff. So, what is that? That was 3. So, 4. Number 5, Vanessa, is it possible to build muscle and lose fat / weight while being at maintenance? Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah. So is it possible to build muscle and lose fat while being at maintenance? Absolutely. Our clients do it all the time. We have many clients who have completely recomped their body while eating at maintenance calories. And so recomposition, that's what we're referring to, body recomposition. You are staying at about the same weight on the scale, yet what makes up that weight, the difference between being lean muscle versus body fat, that's shifting and changing. So oftentimes we'll see our women, like the shape of their body changing slowly month over month while still eating a lot of food. Typically what's happening is, there could be a lot of things. Oftentimes, when you actually are feeding your body enough, you're lowering stress in the body. And when we lower stress in the body, now your body has actually what it needs to be able to build muscle. When we build muscle is metabolically active tissue. Muscle is helping you burn calories. So now you also, in some ways, maybe your maintenance calories are shifting, but overall, like you are kind of toggling in and out of fat burning mode at different points in time, despite eating at maintenance calories because of the fact that you're building that muscle. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. I think the other aspect of it too is, a lot of times people are so afraid of eating more. And so, when you ask somebody, I'm like, well, how do you expect your body to be able to have the fuel to put on the muscle if you're not eating enough of the right things, right? So I think what happens when you are eating at true maintenance is your body also has the nutrients it needs. So now it prioritizes things like muscle growth and, body fat burning and stuff like that, as opposed to when people try to go very restrictive. Well, again, your body just doesn't have a lot of the nutrients that are required to be able to build lean muscle. And I think that's probably where a lot of people get frustrated.
Yeah. Think of it like this. Like we think of the term maintenance calories being that this is where you maintain your body weight at, but it also could be referring to you're maintaining all the physiological activities within your body at full function. Because if you are eating less calories than your body requires in order to operate at full function, then something is going to be, operating at lower functionality. And so if you are giving your body full function, you are maintaining full function of the body by giving your body enough calories to operate all of those pieces of the puzzle. And then as we've talked about, we know all the different pieces of the puzzle within your body, all working interconnectedly together, they're all going to ladder up to your ability to burn body fat and your ability to build muscle. So yeah, absolutely. You can totally transform your body eating at maintenance.
All right. Number 6, Vanessa, how to get to the root cause of histamine issues. Ooh, this is a good one.
Yeah. So histamine issues are a lot more common, I think, than people realize. So for those who don't know what that refers to, so histamine issues, so your body produces histamine. It's a chemical in the body that your body produces. We also can get it from, foods. We can consume histamines as well. So if your body doesn't break down histamines well, which your gut produces enzymes that are responsible for breaking down histamines, if your body struggles with that, maybe it's because your gut is not functioning well, so it's not able to produce that enzyme very well, or, there can be a syndrome, mast cell activation syndrome, I believe it's called, that your mast cells are just producing a lot of histamines. Like that could be a reason why you have high amounts of histamines. But ultimately, if we have this buildup of histamines in the body, that's where you start having a lot of symptoms that sometimes can be very similar to like having an allergic reaction. For a lot of people, histamine issues look like hives, flushing, itchiness, migraines, headaches, but it also can show up as gut issues. So histamine often can look like bloating and gas, heartburn after meals, can be, anxiety or like a racing heart. That's really common as well. And it can also be, symptoms of like looking like you're sick. Like it can be, like having a nasal drip, nasal congestion.
Almost like allergy-like symptoms?
Yeah, exactly. Fatigue, brain fog, like these could all be symptoms of histamine issues. The problem is that these are also symptoms of many other things happening in the body. So sometimes it can be hard to narrow down if it's a histamine issue. And often it's usually not just a histamine issue because, more often than not, it's much less common that it's actually something like mast cell activation syndrome. It's much more common that it's gut issues. A top of mind example is, one of our enrollment specialists, she's also a client as well, and she has dealt really heavily with histamine issues in the past. And like when she joined our team, she was a health and fitness expert, had a good bit of knowledge of functional health, yet she didn't realize that she was having these gut-induced histamine responses.
Well, she didn't have any symptoms, right?
Exactly. Yeah. She didn't have like symptoms of any gut issues. Yeah. And so she actually ended up starting to work with our team as well as a client. And now today, she no longer has any symptoms of histamine issues. She's
I know she mentioned one of the biggest things was she couldn't even work out because when she would go to the gym, her heart rate would get so elevated. She would feel dizziness, all of that stuff. And now she's like, I feel incredible. So
yeah, but that's the reality of things. Of it can be stress induced. So like you go to the gym, working out is a stressor, and so that stress on the body can trigger that histamine response. And so that's where now she has those symptoms upon working out. So for her, we did, a full gut protocol, and that's completely transformed it because hers was tying back to the gut issues. Hers, I think she also had mold exposure in the past. That's very common as well. Mold exposure often drives a histamine response too. But it also could be hormonally related. So estrogen drives a histamine response. Often we'll see it for clients who are on or have been on like an estrogen birth control, to where they'll have a lot of histamine issues because of the abundance of estrogen in their body. If they're in more of like that estrogen dominant side of things, that's super common as well. So ultimately, the question was how to get to the root cause of histamine issues. So we need to ask a lot of questions. Of course, we need to understand what is your health history. We're not just going to isolate the histamine issues themselves and just be like, take a histamine blocker, which is of course an option. Like we can supplement with things like a histamine blocker, but we need to get to the root cause of what is causing you to either produce excess histamine or to not be able to break down histamine properly. And we need to kind of go in order of, we always want to address the liver first because we need to open up detox pathways. We need to make sure that your body can detox properly, because even if it's breaking down the histamine, if it can't get it out, you're going to be stuck. We need to focus on the gut. We need to make sure the gut is in a good place, because otherwise, if gut's not in a good place, if you've had a history of antibiotics, we know gut's not in a good place. If you've been a history of mold exposure, we know gut's not in a good place. So if we're not focusing on the gut, we're going to continue to have this histamine response. And then we need to make sure hormones are in balance, because again, estrogen's a big one. And looking at cortisol as well to make sure your body isn't overly stressed. Those are probably the main areas I would focus on. Ultimately, I would probably start with, on the testing side of things, probably do a GI map and look at what's going on in the gut so we can really target a gut protocol effectively. So this is where it's like really peeling back the layers with people. It's not this like cookie cutter, just like, oh, just do this, just do that. It really is a one step at a time, month over month type of approach.
You have to like follow the clues almost a little bit,
Exactly.
The symptoms, huh?
Yeah. So what I was getting at there is, after we've done those things, if they're still continuing to have this histamine response, that's where I might dive into like MRT testing. So like MRT food sensitivity testing, and see what might be driving a immune response in the body. We're not going to start with something like that, because if we start with just like, oh, we're just going to do these food sensitivities.
You just did one today, an MRT test. I think we should share some of that stuff when you get it back. Any insight, I think that'd be super helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. We could dive into genetic testing. So, looking closer at genetics, there could be a genetic reason why we're having histamine issues. I've done some genetic testing in the past, and I do have a gene that is also associated with histamine issues, and it's something I've had histamine flare-ups in the past, but like because I worked in my gut, that's no longer really much of an issue for me anymore. So there could be a lot of things at play, and a lot we need to dive into and just kind of take it one piece at a time.
Yeah. So all in all, ask questions, follow the symptoms, get proper testing to get to the true root cause of it.
Yeah. Consider health history.
Yeah.
Consider all the symptoms, not just the histamine response in isolation, and proper testing for sure.
Yeah. Okay. This next one I think people are really going to like. So try to answer and give as much depth as possible. So number 7, Vanessa, recent Pooch/low belly weight gain. Where does that stem from?
So the belly pooch, especially if you're someone who maybe you're like leaner in other places on your body, but you just always have that pooch. There could be, different things at play, but the thing I most commonly see is cortisol. So if you are someone who, especially for many years, have been living with stress, or maybe you've been through some trauma, often those with high cortisol are going to have more of that belly issue. It could also be, again, it doesn't have to be this like mental stressor. It could be, one of the examples that one of our coaches always likes to pull is because this coach, Elizabeth, she's a runner herself. And so she likes to often talk about how runners will really make this mistake of developing the cortisol belly, developing that belly pooch because of the fact that they're running and they're under fueling, and they're specifically not making sure that they are fueling well around the run. And so what happens is, cardio like that drives cortisol up. Now what happens is cortisol and blood sugar have a relationship to where cortisol goes up. Your body's like, oh, we got to release sugars into the bloodstream. Cortisol is telling your body, release sugar into the bloodstream. So now you're releasing sugar into the bloodstream, and then your body's like, now we're done running, and like, oh, we don't need this anymore. So your body's like, oh, let's just store that sugar in the belly fat where it's, very close and easily accessible. Store that cortisol into the belly fat, and these belly fat cells, which have more cortisol receptors, for the reason of it's more accessible for your body to just pull it straight from belly fat. So that's why oftentimes you'll see those who have either been under a lot of stress, or if they're just currently stressing their bodies in ways like overtraining, doing a lot of cardio, under eating, they're more likely to have that pooch.
Yeah. All right. Number 8, Vanessa, can you lose slow and steady weight without macro tracking? Oh, I'm curious to hear your response on this one, babe.
Yeah. So, macro tracking is not like this magic tool, like, oh, track your macros and you're going to lose weight, right? Macro tracking is just a tool. That's all it is. It's a tool for managing your intake. So if we've done the work to make sure your metabolism is in a great space, then macro tracking will work. If your metabolism's in a great place, we could use other tools to manage your intake and probably get you losing body fat. The reason that macros is probably going to be the most effective is because it's the most accurate. It's, we always like to use that analogy of It's like if you are keeping a budget of your spending, then you know exactly, okay, I have this much in the bank, I'm putting this much on my credit card. Like, okay, I know I'm in a good place to be able to continue to meet my goal of, saving $500 a month. Like, you have specific targets, you're more likely to get there. If you are just like, well, I don't have a specific goal, I know I kind of want to save money month over month, so I'm just going to like have an idea of what might be in the bank and have an idea of what I'm spending, you'll probably save money because you have some level of awareness, but it's not as accurate. So you're not going to make sure you are saving that exact like $500 a month. Now, on the flip side, if you're not measuring at all, you're like, I'm just swiping my credit card. I have no idea how much is in my bank account. I have no idea how much, that grocery order was when I checked out. I just like didn't even look. I just hand them the credit card. And at the end of the month, you're like, oh my God, I lost money. Well, yeah, because you weren't paying attention to the numbers. That's all it is with macros. So if you want the, of course, most effective, fastest, easiest way ultimately of losing weight, I would argue macro tracking is probably going to be the best tool for that. But macro tracking is not for everybody. And there are other ways of getting there. Ultimately, we could look at using like portions with things. We could do a meal plan to where it's like, okay, if we're not tracking, but we know you're eating the same things day over day, then yeah, that's a way of controlling variables. Less controlled would look like portion sizes, using like your hands, using eyeballing things. The problem with that is we all think we're way better at eyeballing than we actually are.
Even you and I mean, like trainers included, the whole fitness industry.
There's studies on like even dietitians that are, highly trained in this still can't accurately eyeball their calories. It's just the reality of life because a lot of calories are invisible. Unfortunately, that's the truth.
Yeah. All right, number 9. This is funny. Being a healthy couple, Vanessa, have you both always had the same value? Why are you laughing?
So in terms of like the same value, I assume it's referring to like the value of health.
Prioritizing health, I would imagine. Yeah.
Have we always had, well, I mean, individually, neither of us have like always had this value.
Yeah.
Like truthfully, we both have not necessarily always been like a huge value. I think we've had probably at different levels of value this. Like I think my first memory of really starting to value health was in early high school was when I really started to get into like valuing health, and I didn't really know what that meant or what that looked like. But that's where I just built more and more over time. And so really by the time you and I met, I was 22, almost 23 when we started dating, and you were.
What? I don't know why I said that. I'm like, oh yeah, 22-year-old.
You were 25.
Yeah.
So you were,
Listen, there's no age shaming here, okay?
You were 25, 26. I was like, oh man, he's like the sexy older guy.
Yeah.
At that point in time, we both valued our health because we told a story earlier already. We met in a CrossFit gym and we were valuing our health in the sense of physical activity. I remember we did like CrossFit competitions together. Like I would plan out the food and that
was the whole reason why I would do those competitions, just so I could eat extra food.
We tracked macros together on like our first dates.
Yeah.
I think I have like the screenshots of
like here are my macros for the evening. What can we create?
I was like, let's, we were going to cook a meal together. I'm like, oh, like, do you want to, what are you going to be contributing? And he's like, I'm going to do chicken with some like goat cheese stuffed in it. And I'm like, oh, that's so fancy. I'm like, well, like, do you want like some carbs or something with it? And he's like, yeah.
This recap, people are probably like, okay, get it.
No, I have the physical proof. I remember this. Yeah. Exactly. The specific line I remember was you were like, I'm so glad that you understand my weirdness about macros, LOL.
I said that?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm such a loser. Well, in for context, so I'm Mexican, and my values around just health in general were non-existent. And what I mean by that is, my mom now, like every time she comes to see me, she's like, "You're not eating enough. You need to eat more of this. You need to eat this." And I'm just like food has always been like something where it's just nourishment to where it's like you don't leave the table until you're fully done, regardless of how much you ate. And so I just had no awareness. I had no idea what proper nutrition was, what real health was. And I think as we've both gotten older and we've seen the reality, but most importantly for me, I've seen how good I can feel even at like 33. I'm like, dang, I'm like, if I can feel and move and have the energy and the physique that I want to at 33, I'm like, well, then why wouldn't I prioritize this? And then of course, now that, we're both in this industry and, this is literally our job, that helps a ton to be around it all the time. But it came with a lot of trials and errors. It came with a lot of, just honestly a lot of headaches and like bumping our heads against the wall and being like, dang, like why isn't this working? And I think that inspired to my own journey to where I'm like, wow, if I can feel this good, I want to share with others so that they can feel that good too.
Yeah. It was never like this switch was flipped where suddenly we're like, health is our number one priority. Like it was truly this progression and like this feedback loop of when you feel better, you want to continue to lean more into that.
Yeah.
And so that's where it's like our passion for health has just gotten deeper and deeper because it's like, it's this self-rewarding mechanism of like, you feel better. And especially the reality is as you get older, there's more and more of this like divide of people your age that you realize more and more how much it's such a blessing to be able to have health. Because when you're in your 20s, like people don't necessarily have to like eat healthy and work out and they're still probably going to look fit. They could probably, jump into a 5K and be fine. Like then you get into your 30s and that becomes harder, and then 40s even harder. And to where then it's like, I look at somebody like my dad who's 71 years old and he is like the fittest person I know.
Every time we go and work out, I work out with him at a local gym, and everybody's like, so how old are you, Ted? And he's like, 72. And everybody's like, oh my gosh. But yeah, it is pretty cool.
He's ridiculous. And, but like, he's an example and an inspiration for me. I'm like, I want to age like that. I hope I inherit his genetics. And the reality is that comes with what am I doing today? My dad was taking care of his health from a very early age. And he tells stories about like, like he raised me of like, yeah, you wake up and you go to the gym, and like that's just like the values that he had raised me in. I didn't like listen to it and hear it until I was, probably in my 20s because, my dad, of course, I'm like, just don't listen to your parents when you're young. That's the reality. Yeah. But that is the truth and I hope that, when we become parents, I hope we can be an example for our kids too on what it looks like to live healthy. And I think that's a motivating factor for us too.
Yeah, totally. All right, cool. So number 10, Vanessa, what are your thoughts on GI doctors? Should I start my gut health journey there? Yeah, that's the question.
Gosh, this is like a loaded question. So honest answer, I would say my personal opinion would be start your journey in functional health. And the reason I say that is not just because I work in functional health, but it's because good functional health coaches and functional health practitioners are going to refer you to doctors and utilize traditional medical care as intended and as needed. Like we are
bridging the gap almost.
We are by no means anti-traditional medical care and traditional GI doctors and being like, oh, never go see a GI doctor. But we understand where functional health and GI doctors are going to have, maybe differing thoughts and opinions, and where the limits of what a GI doctor will do will leave somebody stuck to where we'll fill in all those holes and then we'll direct you on like, hey, you probably need to go and get this checked out over here. Like, let's go, see if we can get a diagnosis by going to the specialist here. And like, we'll give you that kind of direction. So the reason I say start with functional health is because they'll have your back on that side, at least if it's a good functional health coach. Of course, I can vouch for our team. I can't necessarily vouch for everybody. Now, on the flip side with GI doctors, in my experience of the many clients who've come to us from GI doctors, their GI doctors weren't saying, oh, go work with a functional health coach. Their GI doctors were just saying, no, you're fine. Just go, you're good. Just take this,
enzyme or probiotic.
No, not even enzymes
Really?
and probiotics. It would be like, take this PPI, you're dealing with heartburn. Let's just lower your stomach acid.
What's a PPI again?
Yeah, so PPI would be like Prilosec or what are the other brand names?
Oh, I don't know. I don't
Nexium.
take any of those things.
So that's where it's like in my history, like I saw GI doctors for things. I have a family history of my grandpa had stomach cancer, and so that
really? I didn't know that.
Part of what he died from. And so it's like it's in my family too of like things we look at. Of course, when you think about you hear the phrase of genetics loads the gun and lifestyle pulls the trigger. Well, it's like family history is going to also show you what is loaded in the gun. So it's like, it's important to consider traditional medical care too, of like, don't rule out the fact that you might need to also go and get, I'm struggling with words.
Colonoscopy? Endoscopy?
Yeah, colonoscopy, endoscopy. I'm like, I can't think of words today. Don't rule out the fact that you might need to go get a colonoscopy or an endoscopy. And like, we also need to get tested for these types of things. We need to make sure we're getting proper diagnoses. But the reality is, unfortunately, a lot of people stay stuck because they go to the GI doctor and they're not actually getting the help that they need. They're not actually getting solutions. They're, like I said, getting put on a PPI, which is lowering their stomach acid. And guess what? The example of like my grandpa, he had died of stomach cancer. Stomach cancer, often like that tumor can be developed because of years of not enough stomach acid, and it's almost creating burns in the stomach wall, and that can ultimately turn into a tumor. That's one way that can be developed. So it's like, we need Western medicine. Like, that is important. We need that. But that's probably not what a lot of people right now need. If you've gone and you're in the clear, you've done the endoscopy and colonoscopy, you definitely know that you need functional health. And in functional health, we'll tell you if we're like, I think there's something bigger going on here. Why don't you go get this checked out by a doctor?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I think we'll wrap it up there. We have a lot more questions we could ask, and we'll probably like drag these out over a couple more episodes and sprinkle them.
Maybe I'll start doing that at the end. Be like, all right, one last question from the Ask Me Anything.
Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll get to these at some point.
We'll see.
These were really great questions. So thank you everybody who submitted a question and took the time to do so. And if you found this, if you liked this, if you want more of this, please let me know. It's helpful to get your guys' feedback on what type of episodes you're enjoying, what types of questions you enjoy us talking about. That's really helpful because we want to be here to help and support you guys.
And I do want to ask a favor, because I know we don't ever ask for anything, but if this is something that you guys resonate with, please, please, please leave us a review on iTunes or Spotify. That helps the algorithm push the podcast forward, and most importantly, get it to other listeners who might be struggling in the same shoes as you guys are. So please, please leave us a rating, a 5-star rating, hopefully, and a review to kind of continue to help promote the information that we want to provide.
Just honest ratings and reviews is all
5
we
stars
ask for.
Is what I ask for.
Honest is what we ask for.
5 stars.
Thank you guys so much for listening. We'll be back next week with another great episode.
Bye, everybody.